Big changes are coming to Silverthorne. The town's sprawling 4th Street crossing project is moving forward, and even though it does not look like much has changed in the downtown core, project plans were approved in late June. Town officials describe 4th Street crossing as one development with 5 distinct projects, including a market hall with ground-level restaurants, mixed-use buildings with first-floor retail and second-floor homes, a hotel separate from the one planned for the old Hudson Auto Space, several large retailers, and a new indoor transit center with parking structure. Before a community meeting on July 12th, we talked with town manager Ryan Hyland about the most recent project updates, those 5 distinct pieces, and when he expects shovels to hit dirt on 4th Street. Phil Lindeman, Krystal 93 News Director, in the studio today with Ryan Hyland, town manager for Silverthorne. Ryan, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
Of course. And we are talking about Downtown Core, the Silverthorne Core project. Last time you were in here back in October, we were talking about the master plan and kind of where things are going to be heading in the next few years as exciting changes happen to downtown Silverthorne. And now you have another community meeting coming up on July 12th. That's Thursday. And you'll be talking about focusing on highway and some other kind of immediate things that are happening there. Tell us a little about that meeting.
Yeah, that's right. We've, just to bring folks up to speed on kind of where we are with the 4th Street crossing development process. The next item, as you mentioned, is the community meeting, and that is a requirement for any development proposal that comes to the town. And that meeting always precedes the formal review at the Planning Commission and the Town Council. So that's what we'll be doing on July 12th. I know when folks drive by that block, it looks as it has always looked. And so a lot of folks probably think, geez, what is going on? But you know, on paper, the planning has continued since we last spoke, and the submittal, the formal submittal for the review of that project was provided to the town last week. And so that's what triggers a community meeting, and then moving forward, the process will be a preliminary site plan that goes to Planning Commission and the Town Council, and then a final site plan that would go to Planning and the Town Council. So I think, you know, the timeline for that, if you're looking at the end of the year, probably late fall, right before the holidays, is when I could envision all the final approvals being in place, and then construction would be able to start then after.
Oh. Great. And when you are at the meeting, so if folks can't make it to the meeting or they just want to be brush up on what will be covered there, what will you be going over at this first kind of community meeting?
Yeah, at the meeting you'll have renderings of the different perspectives of the project. It really, when I look at the overall project, it's one development project, and so it will be reviewed as such, but there are really, you could almost envision that as 5 distinct different projects for that whole block. And so, you know, people may be interested in different components. You'll have the market hall, which is a very popular concept that you're seeing in commercial development now with a lot of different food offerings. So that's a very large structure in and of itself. You'll have some residential that have live-work opportunities, so storefront opportunities on Adams Avenue. You have mixed use, which is a big component of the project, so retail with residential above. There's a hotel, so that again is, you know, really a standalone project almost on its own. And then a parking garage, which is an important component of the development, with a transit center that's integrated into that. So that's what folks will be seeing, is the architectural renderings and the site plans and the layout for all of those different components.
Great. And so there's, like you said, it's one project, 4th Street crossing. Under that umbrella, though, many other things to it. Now let's start with some of the highlights. When folks see the renderings and some of these other things, what are they going to be looking at in terms of that hotel? Now, is that going to be going where the old Hudson Auto was?
No, that's actually
that's
the block to the north. Okay. And so, you know, that's another interesting opportunity for our downtown, but this is solely contained on the block between 3rd and 4th. And so, you know, we have new design standards for our downtown, and so this is one of the first projects that will be coming in under those guidelines. And I think, obviously, your viewers can't see this, but if they go to 4thstreetcrossing.com, which is the developer's website, they can get a preview of what that looks like. I think the developer is looking to have architecture that blends into our mountain community. So you're going to see wood and stone and a lot of those materials. But they're interested, as is the town, in understanding how people are feeling like that fits with our community. Certainly it's a very visible landmark. It is the real core of the downtown, so it's important that we and the developer get that design right.
Okay, great. And along with that, parking structure. Obviously, parking is always a big plan. Will that be integrated into the hotel as of now? Is that something that, or will be standalone?
The parking structure is standalone, and it will integrate a transit center. So one of the nice upgrades that this project can bring to Silverthorne is, right now the transit center, the transfer station that's in Silverthorne, has your traditional sort of outdoor minimal structure, minimal protection from weather. And what this project will offer is the opportunity to bring that into a interior conditioned storefront space. And so that will be integrated with the parking garage. The parking garage would serve the hotel, but it would also serve all of the other uses that would be on the site. And then in addition to that, you would see the introduction of on-street parking on all of the streets that are surrounding the project. And so and that's where you really start to get that downtown feel with on-street parking and curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Yeah, and then the next piece of the downtown feel is some of the mixed use and retail developments. What are those looking like right now? I guess in terms of starting with square feet, how much is allotted as of now, do you know?
The market hall is about 26,000 square feet, I believe. And then for the rest of the development, you would have retail on every ground level space that fronts on the any of the roadways. And so I'm not sure exactly how many square feet that is, but that's what you're looking for, is not residential on the ground floor, but you want retail. That's what gives you that vibrancy in the downtown. One of the kind of fun things that the developer is working on, I know that ODI has been closed for a long time, but it's really a beloved feature of Silverthorne. And so while you won't see the exterior structure when this development is done, they are planning on preserving components of that building. And so the bar area will be really kind of enveloped within a new structure. So again, not visible from the outside, but they're thinking of sort of a speakeasy type of theme. And so you kind of have to know that it's in there and know how to navigate your way into it. But they want to preserve that history. And I was in there a couple months ago when the developer and the landowner signed their deal for the property, and it's kind of a time capsule. It is. Everything's still in there, and so
I've never been inside.
Yeah, and a lot of folks haven't since a lot of folks are new to our community since it closed about 10 years ago. But that's kind of a fun component. The other thing is the Mint, which is another historic structure for Summit County, will remain, and so it kind of gets surrounded by new things, but will be kind of courtyards around that, and so rather than parking right next to it, that would become public space that is, we're able to program that and have activities there, and so it will remain, but it will feel very different. Okay,
great. And who are you working with as far as the developer for the structures on this project? And what other stuff have they done similar to this that you know of?
Sure. So Milender White, Tim Frederigill is the developer that's working on this project for Milender White, and they've engaged the architect services from a couple of different firms for different components. So DTJ is one of the architectural firms, and they've done a lot of work in the mountains. They're working on the market hall and some other components, and then different architects for the hotel. So you'll see some different looks for the different components of the project.
And the final big piece of this is the highway portion, the road portion. Tell us a little bit about what's planned for the highway and pedestrian access especially.
Right. So what we're doing on July 12th, it's actually, we don't usually do this, but the fact that the Fourth Street crossing development really does interact with the highway so significantly, we've decided to kind of couple on to their community meeting and also report out on what we've been working on for about a year with CDOT and with FHU, who are a consultant that work on traffic studies. So I think on one side of the room you'll see Fourth Street crossing concepts, and then on the other side we'll bring folks up to speed on where we are with that downtown highway process. And where we are in that process is at the very tail end really of having worked with CDOT and FHU on a collaborative process over the last year to make sure that at some point down the road, this won't happen immediately because obviously it would be a significant expense, but Fourth Street crossing will be fantastic, and you'll have sidewalks and it will feel like a downtown. But making sure that when you're crossing that highway and you're in that environment, if you're going to the Performing Arts Center or the Pavilion or anywhere on the other side, what does that feel like? And today what that feels like is not the greatest. Yeah. Feels like I better get across this really wide, expansive road and do it quickly, and cars and trucks are going through there quickly. So what we will be sharing with the public are some cross sections and drawings of what we've worked with CDOT on, and which they've agreed to, which is transitioning that into more of a downtown environment. And so going from 12-foot widths for lanes down to 11 feet, going from a very wide median there to something that's much more narrow. And so the combination of those things helps slow traffic and gives you a much narrow distance that people have to cross to get from one side to the other. So one of the challenges that we'll face is, what do we do in the interim? Because as I mentioned, Fourth Street will be a reality before the funding is available to do all those highway improvements. So we're going to need to do some things in the interim to make sure that that feels safer for pedestrians, and that we can do a better job of providing crosswalks and some of those things. But ultimately, one of the challenges is slowing cars, and you could go out tomorrow and re-sign that from 35 miles an hour to 25, but unless you have the physical space that makes people feel like they really want and need to slow down, that's not effective. So you need those narrowed lanes. You need on-street parking. CDOT has agreed to, at least on the west side of the highway. And so that gives that buffer for pedestrians that makes them feel safe. And it also, when you have that on-street parking, it causes folks to slow down. You know, when you drive down Frisco Main Street or you're going down through Breck, you don't speed through those areas because it's just doesn't feel right. And so that's what we're looking to do. Okay, great. And CDOT is moving forward with some of these things. They're fine with some of the traffic measures and slowing down traffic through there, even though it seems like kind of a major highway. Yeah, it's a balance for them. Obviously, pedestrian safety is really important, and so I think they understand that these are improvements that will greatly enhance the safety of the area. We do have a challenge that isn't necessarily related to the downtown. It's our exit 205. And that's really what causes the backups in Silverthorne. And so CDOT has agreed that, in your downtown, slowing speeds and doing some of these things doesn't exacerbate the problem of 205. 205 and getting that interchange reconfigured really is the solution to those downtown traffic concerns. And is the exit something that's being worked on right now, I guess in conjunction with this, or does that come later? It's something that they have they did a study. It's about, if I had a visual here, it's a 3-ring binder that's about, 6 inches tall. Yeah. And really identifies exactly how you would go about creating a diverging diamond for that interchange. If you've been to Superior, Louisville area, or there are a few in Utah and one in Grand Junction, that's the identified solution. And so we're working with CDOT to make sure that has all of the final approvals that it needs from federal highways, and then it's a matter of funding. So the solution's identified from CDOT's perspective, just a matter of how do we get that funded.
Okay, gotcha. So one of those things where it's in the works. It's just needs the needs the money
dollars
first.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Now that's kind of the final question that I had for you was looking ahead at the timeline and money for this project. Like you mentioned, 4th Street Crossing, the majority of the buildings will be finished before the road is really worked on.
Right. So what that will look like is there will be a nice streetscape and public amenities that are in the right-of-way, right at the edge of that current highway. But over time, you would see the introduction of on-street parking and, like I said, those narrowed lanes and some of those things. So, you know, I wish I knew what the timeline was for those highway improvements. We'll have to look at town funding, see what CDOT might be able to bring to the table, and see when we could accomplish that. But you will see 4th Street Crossing coming out of the ground, I would imagine, at the beginning of the new year. You will see those street improvements on all of the side streets, so 3rd and 4th and Adams. You'd have on-street parking and sidewalks and curb and gutter and benches and street plantings and those things.
Great. Well, Ryan, that was about the last thing that I had for you. Anything else major that you can think of with 4th Street Crossing or the highway project?
You know, I think I'll put a quick plug in because this is obviously a big project, and I think we'll have a lot of folks that turn out to look at that. But there's a lot of other stuff going on in town right now. Development proposals that have been formally submitted, most of these just in the last few weeks. And so, you know, the time for our residents to really provide their feedback is when you're going through these processes. I know a lot of times people will see a building go up and say, wait a minute, you know, I don't know if I really like the look of that, or, you know, when did that come about?
Yeah, or it seems like a surprise that, when did this happen? When was this approved?
And
when
so
did people...
I would encourage folks to go to our website and sign up to get our planning commission packets or the town council packets, and then they're in on the front end and can really be a part of that process and provide that feedback when it's actually going to impact what happened. So a quick rundown of what's out there. We have a submittal for the Element Hotel, which would be right next to the Hampton Inn. And so people are going to be, they'll have an opportunity if they're tuned in to come to Planning Commission or Town Council, or email or call and say, here's what I think about the architecture there. Mm-hmm. Mountain View Apartments, right behind the Come and Go gas station, next to the Smith Ranch, a submittal for apartments at that location. River West Condos, so I think folks have seen some fencing go up just south of the Alpine Earth Center. Mm-hmm. That's a project that's under review. Blue River Townhomes, it's been in the review process. Their final site plan has been submitted, so that's just kind of to the south of the pavilion in the town center, adjacent to the river there. The old Restore building that's right at exit 205, Snarf Sandwiches and Snarf Burger have submitted a development proposal there.
So that's still happening. Great.
So,
I actually talked to them, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and then went silent, and I was wondering if they were going to come in.
We've got their formal submittal, Great. So if folks want to weigh in on that one, that'll be coming up. Warren Avenue Commercial Park, there's a new development over at 375 Warren Avenue, so you know, there's a whole lot of stuff that's coming up, and if people want to provide their input before they see things coming out of the ground, stay tuned and check for those Planning Commission and Town Council packets. The two things that are also, you mentioned Hudson earlier, we do not have a formal submittal there, but again, that's going to be a significant redevelopment for our downtown, and so we'll keep everybody informed as to what we're seeing there. At this time, we don't have a formal submittal. Then the other one that people are going to see shortly is there'll be a fence that's going around the vacant portion of the Green Village as they get ready to kind of deconstruct, recycle whatever materials they can prior to the demolition of that project. And we do not have a formal submittal for what will replace it, but again, stay tuned, just like on Hudson, to see what we receive and what might be the future for that property.
Great. So all sorts of stuff happening right around in that town core area, and getting kicked off, of course, with the 4th Street Crossing.
Yep.
Great. Now, the meeting, when is it happening? Where is it? And what do people need to know?
So July 12th, which is a Thursday, and we will be at the Silverthorne Pavilion. I think most folks are familiar with that. It's right at 4th Street and the Blue River Parkway. So 4 to 6 o'clock from on July 12th, and I believe there will be 2 presentation times. So whenever folks show up, they should be able to catch a short presentation. But as with most of our community meetings, it's really also open house format. We'll have staff there, the developer will be there, and a lot of visuals, and folks can just interact with staff and the developer and share their feedback.
Great. So drop by anytime during those 2 hours and get a little bit more info about 4th Street Crossing.
That's the plan.
The redevelopment of Highway 9 through Silverthorne. Exciting stuff, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to share it with everyone.
Of course. So again, that's Thursday, July 12th at the Silverthorne Pavilion from 4 to 6 p.m. Learn more about the 4th Street Crossing development. Phil Lindeman on Krystal 93.